The Red Sox appear to be real close to getting back some really key players. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. Ladies and gentlemen, there are two things that are going to be really important for the Red Sox coming down the stretch here. The first one is going to be, can this Red Sox team stay healthy? And the second one is going to be, can the Red Sox get healthier, right? Can they get the guys back that they need to get back before the end of the season? Now, obviously, the first one we can't really predict, right? The hope is that they can stay healthy, but you never know. It's Major League Baseball, and I'm going to knock on wood just to make sure that I don't jinx them by saying that. Now, the other one, we actually do get some information on because recently the Red Sox gave us some really big injury updates on some key guys, meaning they could be back in the very near future here, and that starts with Justin Slaten. The latest update from Alex Cora is that Justin Slaten felt good coming out of his rehab outing on Sunday, also noting that while his velo was a little bit lower than normal, it isn't something to be worried about. And the good news here is that he doesn't think he's going to need any other rehab outings. They just want to see how he feels with a little bit of rest before making the decision to reactivate him. And that decision will most likely take place as soon as tomorrow. So we could be getting Justin Slaten back very, very soon here. And honestly, the Red Sox bullpen has been pretty good lately without him. Whitlock has kind of taken over that high leverage righty role for the Red Sox recently. He's been flat out dominant in it. 22 games dating back to July 4th with a 0.92 ERA in 19 2/3 innings, just a 1.29 FIP. He struck out 24 batters in that time span, allowed just 2 earned runs and only 3 walks. So the Red Sox have actually been able to maintain this sort of successful level of a bullpen, sort of without Justin Slaten. I know he's been out much longer than since July 4th, but Whitlock has really stepped into that role yesterday. I wanted to give him some really big flowers, especially after what he did last night. And obviously, you've got your closer, right? He's one of, if not the best closers in Major League Baseball right now. Chapman's got a 1.06 ERA on the entire season with a 1.92 FIP and a 0.686 WHIP. Just overall, absolutely disgusting stuff. Right now, it feels like if the Red Sox can get into that 8th inning with a lead, it feels like an automatic W if Chapman and Whitlock are able to come into these games, right? It's just unbelievable what they're doing right now. But that doesn't mean the Red Sox can't continue to get better in this bullpen because as we've seen over these past couple of months, bullpen arms tend to fluctuate a little bit, right? Some of these guys like Chapman can maintain their level of success, but there are times when over these last couple of months, it's been Wilyer who's been the high leverage guy, and then he starts to falter a little bit. Then it goes to Whitlock. Now he becomes that high leverage guy. It's always nice to be able to add in another arm into this bullpen, and obviously it's nice when that bullpen name is Justin Slaten, who has the potential to be one of the better high leverage relievers in the sport, and I don't think that's an exaggeration to say. We've seen that in stretches throughout his career so far with the Red Sox. All signs are indicating that he's ready to come back and absolutely dominate. He's had 3 outings on his rehab assignment, which equaled just 3 innings of work. In that time span, he allowed just 1 hit total. He struck out 5 guys, walked just 1 earned batter, and did not put any earned runs on the board. Red Sox had a guy like this to the bullpen who has, again, the potential to be one of your higher leverage arms. You can all of a sudden really start to mix and match how you approach the late innings of games here, right? You don't always have to go to Whitlock or Wilyer to get these games done. You could go to Slaten, right? And all of a sudden, you could push Wilyer into that medium leverage role that we saw him in at the very early part of this season where he was really, really dominant. Greg Wilyer is okay in high leverage spots. He's had his problems this year, but I think overall has been pretty good, but he's really just a dominant 7th inning, 6th inning, get you to the high leverage guys type person, and he can now take that role back with Justin Slaten back in this bullpen. And again, just having as many weapons as humanly possible, especially down the stretch here where you're most likely going to be playing not only a lot of games in a row, but also a lot of games that are going to mean what, deciding whether or not you're going to be in the top wild card spot or the second or whatever, right? All of a sudden, every single game feels entirely more heightened than it normally is. Getting a guy like Slaten back is going to be absolutely massive, and we're about maximum here, 48 hours away from seeing that come back to reality, potentially even 24, even honestly today I think at some point, but I'm not going to put that out there just yet. So we'll see when Slaten comes back, but it's in the very, very near future. But it's not just impact relievers the Red Sox are getting back in these next couple of games. It's also some outfield guys as well, and it starts with Rob Refsnyder, who's literally going to be activated any day now. It could actually be today. In fact, the latest update is while it wasn't last night, there's a real chance that Rob is back at some point in this Orioles series, although Thursday would make some sense here considering the Orioles are going with a lefty on the bump, and as we all know, Rob Refsnyder's only job in this world is to give left-handed pitchers nightmares right before their start, right? That's just the kind of dude Rob Refsnyder has been since becoming a legitimate piece for the Boston Red Sox. Now, what's going to be interesting about this thing is how do the Red Sox fit him on this roster? The obvious answer right now is probably Nate Eaton, who just simply hasn't done much of anything since being called back up to the Boston Red Sox. It's not totally his fault. He's played in 4 games, but only played in 1 full game since coming back to the Red Sox. That 1 game he did have a hit. Every other game he has not gotten a hit. He feels like the pretty obvious one, right? With the fact that he has a couple options remaining, with the fact that he's a right-handed hitter who plays some outfield. It feels like just a match made in heaven there. So I'd imagine this is probably the move whenever they make the move, but I wouldn't totally rule out something else, right? I always put David Hamilton on here, right? He always feels like a candidate to potentially be optioned just because of, the role he's been playing with the Red Sox recently, although I will say he did have 2 relatively okay games in that Yankees series, so maybe they bought him some time. And I will say with David Hamilton, when you're looking at this a little bit, you're saying, okay, you need someone to be able to play the infield. Rob Refsnyder can kind of play the infield if he absolutely has to. He's mainly an outfielder, though. Outside of that, you really got Romy, Nate Eaton, and then a catcher. So it's not like you have a ton of options here to fill in for infield spots. So I think David Hamilton's safe. I would imagine this is going to end up being Nate Eaton being optioned to minor league baseball. But either way, regardless who ends up going down for Rob Refsnyder, it's going to be nice to have him back, right? It's always nice to have Rob on this team. I mean, even this year, he's been hitting pretty well. He's been an above average hitter this season, 272 average, 357 on base percentage, 471 slug for 128 OPS plus this season. Has been a little bit colder lately. I think that's something to note, especially right before he got onto the IL. I'd imagine that has a lot to do with playing through the injury, right? So getting him back 100% healthy, hopefully, is going to help him get right back on track, because the Red Sox can obviously always use a bat like this. It's going to be nice to get Rob's bat and personality back with this Red Sox team, and again, it should be any day now. The other outfielder we're talking about in today's video is Wilyer Abreu. Now, obviously, this is going to be a little bit later than we initially anticipated Wilyer coming back, considering the fact that when he first originally got injured, there wasn't even consideration for him being on the IL, right? It felt like he was just going to take a couple of days off and end up back on here, but obviously, he ended up on the IL, and now it feels like you're actually going to be missing him for about another weeker-ish or so. In fact, according to Alex Cora before this game, the Red Sox are now planning on activating him around September 1st, which honestly feels a bit more strategic than it does concern for his health, which is obviously a part of it for sure. I don't think the Red Sox are completely being like, hey, we're just going to throw you out there injured on September 1st because it makes sense in terms of roster construction, but I do think it's absolutely part of it, right? Because as we all know, September 1st means you're going to be expanding this roster, and normally expansion means 1 pitcher and 1 hitter. So by doing this, what it allows the Red Sox to do is it allows the Red Sox to bring Wilyer Abreu back without actually having to make any sort of roster move, right? If they could just push it off until the beginning of September, they don't need to worry about who's going to get optioned or who's going to get DFA'd or how that works out. And what it also does is it allows Yostinson Garcia to get a legitimate spot here on the big league club, right? To potentially make some legitimate impact down the stretch. Not so much this cup of coffee that he was initially brought up to be, right? If Wilyer was going to come back, let's say tomorrow, the obvious answer would be you have to option Yostinson Garcia down to AAA baseball. But now you can sit there and you can say, look, Garcia can get some legitimate time up here, and then we can figure it out after rosters expand. Now, the one thing I will say about this plan is that this is a lot of outfielders, isn't it? I mean, you think about it, rosters expand, all of a sudden you've got Rob Refsnyder coming back, you've got Roman Anthony, you've got Duran, you've got Seidan, you've got Masataka Yoshida, now you also have Wilyer Abreu, and you've got Yostinson Garcia, and all of a sudden that's what, 6, 7 outfielders the Red Sox are going to have to manage down the stretch? That's a ton of time for guys who there are only 3 spots for, potentially 4 with the DH, right? I don't know how the hell the Red Sox end up doing that. Do some of these guys have the ability to play some other positions? Yeah, obviously, right? I mean, Seidan Rafaello will probably get a decent amount of time at second base down the stretch, which I still don't love. I would rather him be in the outfield. Rob Refsnyder could potentially, I mean, we saw him a few times at first base last year. We saw him at second base a couple of times throughout the years as well. So, I mean, there's a potential he could play other positions. You got Yostinson, who potentially right now could play a little bit first base. I don't really know. He only has 1 professional game over there at first base, but everyone said he looked pretty natural over there. My moral of the story here here is that while this makes a lot of sense just simply to hold on to Justinson Garcia so you're able to get him some legitimate reps in Major League Baseball, it's still going to be difficult to actually get him those reps in Major League Baseball despite the rosters expanding. So I wouldn't be totally shocked here if even with the rosters expanding, the Red Sox still decide to option Justinson down to minor league baseball just simply to get a guy up here like Nick Sogard, who maybe not as impactful as Garcia could potentially be, but at the same time too could play a whole lot more positions, give you a little bit more roster flexibility than you had before. I don't know, right? I just want to keep that in the back of your heads. I still want to see Justinson Garcia get some legitimate time at the Major League level. I want to see him flush it out. I want to see what his potential could look like, and I still believe in the talent for sure. I just want to keep that on the table just in case, but still a little bit to go for Wilyer Abreu. The last injury update I wanted to give you guys in this video was actually the most recent one, and that was on Richard Fitts, who came out of yesterday's game after this pseudo start that he had in the 6th inning just after the first pitch. Now, the Red Sox called this right bicep tightness, but he actually seems pretty okay, for being honest, right? Or I guess as okay as you can be, considering he got injured. In fact, it's to the point where the Red Sox don't even feel as though he's going to need to get imagery done on his bicep, which is fantastic, right? Even very cautious scenarios, the Red Sox tend to get imagery done. So the fact they're sitting there saying, no, we don't need an MRI, we don't need an X-ray, we don't need anything like that, leads me to believe that they're pretty confident that this isn't anything crazy major, which is, again, a really great news. And I do have to feel for Richard Fitts, right? He's had his ups and downs this season, but in my opinion, a large part of that is because he's been up and down this season. He got injured really early on. It took him a little bit to come back from that. He never really got any sort of rehab process in that. He was just kind of thrown back in at the Major League level. Then he's been up and down throughout minor and Major League Baseball this season. Now he's stuck in a bullpen role, right? He's been sort of legitimately all over the place this year, and I think that's a large part as to why we can't seem to find any sort of consistency here with Richard Fitts, because he doesn't have any consistency to start with. So I'm really glad that this isn't anything major. It's just one of those guys we sit there and it's like nobody deserves to be injured, but it feels like guys deserve to not be injured more than other guys. Does that make sense? I think Richard Fitts is in here for sure. I am interested to see, though, if potentially this sort of opens the door to the Red Sox calling up Peyton Tolley down the stretch run here. I think that's a major reason why the Red Sox didn't go with Kyle Harrison in last night's start, was to potentially open the door for a Peyton Tolley call-up now that Richard Fitts could potentially end up on the IL. Again, even if he does, going to be a very short stint, but if he ends up on the IL, I'm really curious to see who takes over that spot. Now, this is a little bit of a tinfoil hat Corbin moment where there's no real evidence to back this up. There's nothing saying, hey, the Red Sox are planning on calling up Peyton Tolley, and that's why they didn't call up Kyle Harrison. But to me, it just makes a lot of sense, right? There's a ton of hype around him. The organization absolutely loves this dude. You know, rosters expanding very quickly here. It could make a lot of sense to throw Richard Fitts on the 15-day IL, get Peyton Tolley up here, kind of replace him in that rotational spot, have him be that sort of 4 or 5 inning type pitcher, maybe piggyback Walker Buehler off of him like we've talked about before. I don't know. I'm very excited about Peyton Tolley and just sort of looking for ways to get him up here, for being honest, but this could potentially be one. Even though it's tinfoil hat, I do think it's grounded in reality, so we'll see, right? We'll see. I don't want to get anyone excited about it. But Richard Fitts overall pretty much avoided what could have been a really bad injury update here. Overall, I would say most of this is positive, right? Again, the Red Sox need to stay healthy, need to get healthy, and right now it feels like they are getting healthy. Rob Refsnyder's back any day now. Justin Slaten's back any day now. It feels like they're sort of pushing off a Wilyer Abreu thing in order to make sure that Justinson Garcia could stay on this roster down the stretch run, right? I mean, I'm sure that he needs the time off, but that's kind of what it feels like. But they avoided a real disaster with Richard Fitts, but it still opens the door for a potential Peyton Tolley call-up. I would say for the most part, I'm about as happy as I could be about injury updates, right? It always feels weird saying you're happy about injury updates, but this one does feel like a legitimate positive one. And again, if the Red Sox can get healthy, they could really make a legitimate push here during the back end of the season and potentially land themselves in this top wild card spot, but you got to play games to do that. So I'm not going to put anything out there about this just yet. However, I do think this is a good thing. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? What do you think about these injury updates? Is there any of them that stand out to you more than the others? curious, is there any sort of conspiracy that you're looking at that you're like, hey, maybe this is a pathway for so-and-so to get up here? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you guys want to listen instead of watch, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.